All right, here we go. Welcome to the MedStory podcast, where healthcare meets storytelling. My name is Spencer Locke, your host, and you're about to meet Dr. Cynthia Chen Joya. She's a hospital leader, coach, and founder of not one, but two physician-focused businesses. In this episode, we dive into how burnout led to her rediscovering her purpose, how she learned to set real boundaries, and to build a personal brand that reflects who she is beyond the white coat. So if you've ever felt that there's something more calling you outside of clinical work, then this conversation is your sign. So let's get into it. So for physicians who are still deep in clinical work, but feel called to do something more, is there a place that you recommend that they should start to figure out which direction they should go in?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So, if you're still deeply embedded in clinical work, but maybe you feel like there's something more you want to do or that there's something missing, I think the first step is just to acknowledge that inner voice, that feeling, and listen to it and just be curious. You don't need to know exactly what you have to be doing. And I think there is some uncomfortableness in that because as physicians, we always know what the next step is going to be or what we have to do. So you don't need to have all of the answers, but just get really curious. You don't need a polished brand. You don't need a business plan. You don't need a perfect vision. But I think just asking yourself in your day-to-day conversations, like, what is interesting to me? What lights me up? What am I passionate about? What problems am I really excited about solving? What's bringing me energy? And the things that bring you energy, that excite you, I think it fills you up. And the things that maybe you're not as passionate about or not as excited about, those are the things that really drain you. So just being aware of how you feel in your day-to-day life, I think that could be the first step. And then from there, the next step is visibility. So, and I say that in a way that feels natural to you, right? So, like commenting on maybe a post or posting something on LinkedIn or social media about something you're really passionate about that is authentic to how you feel and who you are, I think could be that first step. And so when I say visibility, that's what I mean. Not necessarily what you think is the popular topic or what other people might want to hear, right? And as you start doing those things, it could be even talking more openly with your network about things you care about beyond your clinical day-to-day work. Those are things that I think can bring a sort of authenticity to who you are and your brand. And so building your brand, a lot of people I think get caught up on like their logo or their brand name or their website. I think it's less about those things. And I think it's more about allowing people to see who you are and what you stand for. What's your mission and vision and what you want to accomplish and the type of impact you want to create in your life. And I think when you show up authentically, sharing those values and your passions, you naturally start to build that foundation for your brand.
Oh, I love that. It's interesting when I hear you explain that to me because I use a similar framework when I'm working with my physicians and like the way that they're going to communicate. And I often find that we take them through a three-step framework where they're in a position, most of them are working in a hospital and they're like, I want to do something more. And it's like, well, where do I start? And like you said, many of them are like, well, I want a professional website. I want all these things. You say, no, let's just start with what makes you unique and like, what's your story? What is
Exactly.
going on in your life that's driving this fire to say, I want change?
Exactly.
And then you dive into that story, you get connected with those emotions, and then you learn is how am I going to tell that story and how am I going to share it with the world? So I think those are very parallel with those frameworks. And I'm actually curious now is because as someone that coaches physicians, you must have a story behind that yourself.
Oh, yes, definitely. I think so many physicians having the passion to want to create change and make a difference in our patients' lives. We dive into our work so much, and then you start realizing that there are all of these expectations for who you are as a physician, like it's so close tied to our identity, what that looks like. I think a lot of physicians tie the achievements we make with external validation and motivation to continue doing that to create change, right? But it's also that positive reinforcement of every achievement we make that goes on your CV. And great, what does that mean? That's an accomplishment. And I think that cycle can really cause burnout because then you're doing things not because you want to do them, not from some sort of internal motivation, although there certainly could be. But there's this idea of like, the more I need to do, it is my value, right? The more patients I see, it's tied to what I deserve in terms of my pay as a physician. It's the value I bring to the organization. And so when that happens, I think a lot of physicians start getting burnt out from that. And it's, when is this enough? How many patients am I going to see? The things that I'm doing for this organization, the things that I'm accomplishing, when, like, am I enough, right? Are these things enough? Am I a good physician after doing all of these things? And when does that line happen? Right. And then that's when the boundaries start to blur. So for me, my story, I mean, I think a lot of it is tied a lot with the idea of imposter phenomenon too. As a new graduate wanting to change the world immediately, make a difference in my institution. I was working a ton and it didn't help that it coincided with COVID. So I was a brand new director of inpatient medicine in 2019 at a residency program. And then COVID hit in 2020. And all of a sudden, I'm trying to lead a team while addressing this huge public health pandemic, also incorporating quality improvement and safety into our hospital system. And I was working, I don't know, I would say maybe probably around 80 hours a week at that time, seeing probably almost 30 patients per day in peak COVID area with all my residents. And you can definitely see how that very quickly led to burnout. And even after COVID subsided, I would say the initial pandemic rush subsided. You still had those yearly COVID rushes that came in. And when we are not able to let go of those expectations of how much am I doing is enough? Like, is this enough? Are the number of patients I'm seeing enough? Is what I'm teaching enough? Really questioning who you are, your values, and you're bringing to the world pushed me to do more and more. And then there really is there's no end. You never get there, right? And so it really took me to when I got pregnant to question all of my beliefs of who I am and that, yeah, I am enough in all that I'm doing. And that was the first time I actually put myself first. I remember going days of not eating or not going to the bathroom because I had to see all these patients. Everyone else came before me and I had to finish all of my work before I could do anything for myself. And it's part of our medical culture of our training, right? You can't eat when you're hungry. You can't sleep when you're tired. You can't use the bathroom when you have to because you have to serve everyone else before you serve yourself. And when I got pregnant was the first time I really truly put myself first, not even for myself, but the baby I had inside me, because I wanted her to be healthy, be happy, grow up without the stress and anxiety in my body. And that's when I really started taking care of myself. And then after I had her, I think it just changed all of my priorities in life. And yes, these were all the things I wanted to accomplish, but how was I showing up on a day to day basis when I was so burnt out all the time? And so really redefining what my priorities looked like, which was her and my family and wanting to spend time with them. And learning that I really had to take care of myself first before I can show up in authentic, full way to be able to best care for my patients. And that was a huge mindset shift. And I had coaching to thank for that. I had my first coach during my postpartum era, and that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole life. I have so much respect for all the moms out there. But I really needed someone to help me balance and help me figure out what my priorities or how I could bring wellness back into my life. Because now I have this little innocent baby to take care of, but also you want to continue showing up in the best way for your patients. And so how can we balance those things? And that kind of led me down the coaching journey because I saw how transformational it was for me and bringing me back to myself and who I am and how I could show up and help other people. And so, of course, then you want to be able to do that and have that impact on everyone else. So that was my first stint into coaching. And I've had a coach ever since. And then I ended up starting my own coaching company. And now I have two actually. One on physician wellness, looking at imposter syndrome, setting boundaries, burnout, and the second one on physician contract negotiation.
Ah, that's a really powerful story. And it's amazing that it took you, because there was probably plenty of red flags that were happening along the way that you were either justifying or just putting off. And then the catalyst was you getting pregnant, and then almost seeing the light with your coaching and with your new baby, and seeing, okay, here's what's possible. And so what was the first step that you took when you decided, you know what, I want to do this for other physicians myself, I'm going to become a coach? What was the first thing you did?
I Yes, the first thing I did, honestly, was I worked with a coach to look at what lit me up and what I was passionate about, what brought me joy. And when I looked at my career, my day-to-day things that I was doing, biggest thing that I loved doing was my one-on-ones with my faculty. So I was our faculty development lead, doing workshops for our faculty and residents. And that was by far the thing I loved, was doing those workshops, teaching, learning, having those one-on-ones, doing advising, mentoring, and coaching with our faculty and our residents. And how can I transform that to my day-to-day life and just doing that, and really went through this whole brainstorm with my coach at that time and tried out a lot of different things. It's all about trial and error and experience for what you like, what you don't like, what brings you joy, what gives you energy, right? And I really landed on coaching as that thing that I just loved doing and I could never get enough of. And I realized every time I finished a coaching session, I was more energized at the end of that session than I was at than I was at the beginning. And so that really told me, wow, this is something I'm really drawn to and passionate about, is having those confirmations and helping physicians see and find that balance, whatever it might look like for them, what they are passionate about, helping them fill up their cups in a way that helps them have joy and find joy again in their day-to-day life, not just in their career, but in their life as well.
And I think oftentimes, to fill your cup up like that, sometimes it is going after opportunities that are outside of traditional medicine, for example, coaching. And so when you're making that transition from just a clinical doctor to really an entrepreneur, was there a mind shift set that you had to do? Or was there sorry, I'm saying that wrong. Was there a mindset shift that you had to do to really navigate the two paths?
Oh, yes. I think one of the biggest mindset shifts was looking at my identity as a physician, because, like so many doctors, again, it's tied into who I am. And I think that mindset shift was that being a physician is what I do. And yes, it is part of my identity, but it is not the entirety of who I am. And I am a human being first. And so, how I measured success, how I spent my time, things that I valued, I really had to go back and question of whether this was something that were these societal expectations of me being a physician, or was it something that really reflected my own values and what I was aligned with? Yeah.
You went and then you started your coaching business. How did you find your client?
That's a great question. When I started this journey, so my first client was actually a friend and a colleague. And so when I started this journey, it's funny that I didn't see it myself, but so many of my colleagues said, "Oh, yeah," when they heard that this was what I wanted to do and that I had started a business, like, "Oh, yeah, of course, I can totally see you as a coach. It's so natural." So it's funny that everyone else saw it before I did. And so, yeah, my first client was a colleague and friend. Was when they heard about it, they wanted to see what the experience was like, and yeah, that then signed on.
I'm curious because I've seen several physicians do this where they're starting their business Some get caught up being like, I need to have everything set up. I need to have all my LLC, everything set up perfectly before I can even accept a client. And some get going and then they get that set up. Did you go one of the two of those pathways?
I so I think what you're alluding to is maybe the idea of perfectionism, right? In the very beginning, yes, I think definitely the idea of setting up a whole business is very daunting because, and I think it's very tied with the concept of imposter syndrome or imposter phenomenon of anytime we do something new, there's fear because we don't know how to do it. And we want someone to tell us what to do, right? And there is no magic formula in entrepreneurship. You just do what works best for you, what calls out to you, because nobody else in the world has your vision, your mission, and know what impact it is you want to have on your audience and on the world. So nobody can tell you this is the formula you need to follow to make you successful because nobody is you. And you're the only one, you're the only unique you that has your experience, your vision, your mission, and what you want to bring to the world, the type of impact you want to have. And so I think the idea of like, I have to have everything perfect and ready and set up before I can launch is a crutch for a lot of people because then you never take that next step. And really, entrepreneurship, it's all messy, it's all imperfect. You take the next step and then you see what happens. And if it's a success by your definition, great. And if it's not, I still think it's a success because at least at that point, you have got some more information. That was a learning opportunity. So you learned, okay, maybe this is something I need to do differently next time, and you keep going. Or you learned, hey, maybe that's not something I actually wanted to do. Like if you took on a new project, hey, this project actually is not something that is filling my cup. I'm not super excited. It's actually draining me. And so maybe this is not something I want to do. Right. And so not looking at it as failure, but I think looking at it as all learning opportunities and that you're getting more information for yourself on how to course correct your life so that you can continue that path towards your North Star.
And I think a good way to put something like that is to say, the goal is to fail forward. As physicians, you want to collect data, and the only way to collect data is to test. So
Yeah.
you go, you test, you fail, then you reassess, you look at the data, and then you make small incremental changes
Yeah.
and stop thinking that it needs to be so perfect because that's what holds so many people back. And I've worked with physicians who have no business and are just building their brand to ones that are running multi-million dollar businesses, and all at some point, they're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
And like, no matter where you are along the journey. And so I think it's really difficult when you look ahead and you say, oh, that's where I should be, rather than focusing on where am I today and what is the next step that I need to make to move myself forward.
Exactly. And it's all a journey for everyone. You are on your unique path and journey. I heard someone say this life is the dash between your birth date and your death date. And it's the right now that is what makes us most happy. And so when you look back on your life, like what does that dash look like? What does the right now look like? And this is it. This is your journey. And whatever that looks like, what is it that you want, right? So for me, and through coaching, I find it's very similar for most people. It's about being happy, finding joy, finding peace. And so, what is that next step that is bringing you closer to those feelings? In conjunction, of course, with the mission you want to accomplish in life, right? So for me, it's about physician wellness and finding sustainability for physicians in medicine. And so, what does my day to day decisions look like step towards my ultimate mission? But also, like, what is that step that's going to make me happy and have joy and love and peace in my day to day life? Because that when I'm present and to the right now, that's when I'm most happy. And so, what can I do? How can I structure my career, my life? So it looks like that I can find that on a daily basis.
Is there a certain transformation that you can share of someone that went from feeling stuck like that, but breaking free to explore whatever passion that may be?
Oh, there's a lot. I mean, so one particular person comes, I would say their journey is unique to them, but I think it's representative of a lot of physicians is in your day-to-day work. We've heard the term comparison is a thief of joy. So the comparison of, okay, I really like to do this one thing, but how come nobody else is being asked to do this thing? And it's an extra task on my to-do list, and I'm not getting paid for it. And so, because of that, even though I like doing it, I'm upset that I'm being asked to do it. Versus, I think reframing it and saying, yes, I get to do this one thing that I love. And also, I deserve, like, let's call it, I deserve an extra stipend, right? I deserve extra pay to be asked to do this one thing. So, what can I do to continue doing this one thing and also get what it is that I deserve as a physician and the value I'm bringing to the institution? So, I think for that particular person, when we were chatting about these extra duties that they were being asked to do, was able to go from really feeling angry and frustrated and stuck, showing up in that way, which affects communication and their relationships and interactions with people, right? To, okay, what can I be how can I be constructive of what it is I actually want, which is maybe an extra stipend and acknowledgement for this extra work that I'm doing. And so I can continue doing this and feel like I'm showing up a different way and happy. And so we were able to create a plan for this particular physician moving forward for her to request what it is she felt like she deserved and wanted and was able to successfully get it for her so that she was able to show up, being able to do these extra duties and be happy and joyful and that in showing up for her day-to-day life and that she was getting properly compensated for her extra duties.
I think after having this conversation with you, I'm learning a lot about the importance of your own value and your own self-worth. And it really starts there because if you don't value yourself, if you don't value your time, you value your experience, then it's really hard to take that next step forward. But once you do find that value, it gives you the confidence to start to speak up, whether it's for yourself in the workplace or yourself to take a leap and maybe start your side business as you continue to practice.
Yeah.
And do you think that there any once you feel that is how do I want to say this? Once you feel that you've been like, okay, I know I'm worth something more, is there a next step that you encourage them to take?
So I do a lot of contract negotiations too, coaching. I started a business with a partner and we focus on physician contract negotiation. And one of the big things I always say the first rule in contract negotiations or any kind of negotiations, right, is one, knowing what you're worth, but two, be willing to walk away. Because if you are worth more and that institution doesn't see that and isn't valuing you for all of the work that you are doing as physicians, you are literally the backbone of the whole medical institution because they cannot operate, cannot see patients, cannot function without you, right? And so when you know that is true and they are not treating you as such, then I think be willing to walk away. I would say that's number one. If it's something that you feel like you're able to continue to have a conversation with, engage in, they respect you, then I think that is the next step to take is to start engaging in those conversations and being curious about what it is the institution is trying to achieve, understanding what the institutional values are. Because oftentimes, I think when your values and the institutional values align and are the same, I think that's when magic can really happen. That's when most physicians are happiest in their workplace, is when those things are aligned. And if those are different, I think that's a foundation for something that might not be long-term successful. That relationship might not be long-term successful. So I would say if you think that there is someone listening in your institution or your workplace or the things that you're trying to accomplish and they're engaging with you and you see that effort and they value you as a person, then I think having that conversation and engaging for engaging with them in terms of what they can do to help you in your day-to-day life, what they can do to provide value to you, because you provide so much value to them already, just being there and showing up every day.
Yeah, it's amazing. You're offering so much amazing value to these doctors. And unfortunately, this kind of guidance is needed more than ever. And whether or not they're just trying to figure out, do I want to stay on my career path and figure out what's the next step to where I want to be? Or do I want to start working on my side business? It seems like you can help them through that pathway.
So I was going to say, I think for a lot of physicians, it includes the intersection of all of your physician identities as a person. So like, I'll just say for me as an example, right? As a physician, as an advocate, I am heavily involved in advocacy work, but also I'm a mom and a wife and a first generation Asian American, like all the things I love to do. I'm a lifelong learner. Those all compile a person of who you are, and remembering those things, those hobbies of who you are, and utilizing that to fill your cup, whether it is choosing to pursue a hobby again, engaging in something that you love and enjoy, or utilizing that to maybe help you build a side gig, I think is so important because it's so authentic to you as a person. And as a physician, and I was definitely subject to this, you get caught up of that identity of overworking and trying to be all these things for everyone else, for your institution, working for them, that external validation, that imposter syndrome, like everything we talked about. And that's why when I talk about like your expectations as a physician, your identity as a physician, I think for a lot of people, it compels you to do those things to fulfill those expectations. And when you remind yourself of who you are and what you actually enjoy doing and bring that part of it back into your life, I think it really helps balance those expectations and brings back a part of who you are. And that in and of itself can balance we talk about the elusive work-life balance. I think that in and of itself can help contribute to that work-life balance.
Said so well. So if a physician is listening to this and they say, you know what, actually, I would like to talk to Cynthia, like, and learn out what she offers, where could they actually find out more about you?
Yeah, my website is www.thrivationcoaching.com, and I coach on burnout, imposter syndrome, setting boundaries, perfectionism, communication, all that good stuff. My second company is Physician Contract Negotiation. You can find us at www.physiciancontractnegotiation.com. And we do coaching around physician contracts. And so those are the two places you can find me. You can always email me at thrivationcoaching@gmail.com. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram under Thrivation Coaching.
Oh, amazing. I honestly could sit down and talk with you for hours on all of these things, but hopefully this is the first of many conversations that we can have and dive down into these different pathways. But regardless, I so appreciate you. This was an amazing conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed having this conversation with you, and hopefully other physicians out there listening, hopefully it made a difference and an impact and got them thinking.
Thanks for listening to the Med Story podcast. Do you have a story to tell? We'd love to hear from you. Make sure to go to medstorymedia.com/podcast and apply to be a guest. We look forward to hearing from you soon.